So my morning reflections were about how beliefs don't necessarily have to correspond to reality with the human mind. I was thinking a lot about animals and experiments that have been done where you can drop seeds randomly with birds, and birds will actually, like if they're going around and they're pecking in a certain way, they'll when the seeds are dropped, they'll repeat that pattern of behavior to basically, like, they develop some sort of superstition that something that they are doing would had impact on the seeds falling. And so beliefs are not something that only human brains make up. Beliefs seem to be the way brains work. Brains seem to operate on some sort of belief system. Of course, the more primitive the brain, the less complex or intricate, or it doesn't have as many symbols and interesting things going on as a human belief system. But what I was noticing is that human brains just operate on belief systems. And the beliefs that we operate on don't necessarily have to correspond to reality. And that's really important to understand about how our brains work. Because that means we'll come across something that is completely false and has nothing to do with the world. I like to use the example in my mind. I was thinking about Jesus as being the Son of God and doing all that stuff. It's something that if you put that into your mind and really start to believe it, it becomes a really useful belief. And because the more I encounter Christians, they found a way to make a part of their mind love them unconditionally, because they fully believe that Jesus is this source of unconditional love, and they have brought unconditional love into their life through this belief in Jesus. And I'm not going to get caught up in trying to prove that it's true or not true or anything like that, but it's more, it most likely has no correspondence with reality, but it doesn't matter whether or not it has correspondence to reality, because as far as the brain's concerned, if it's useful and is doing something, it's allowing you to operate in life, that's all it really needs to know. That's about the only testing criterion. So what I find really interesting is when I come across people who don't believe things that could be useful to them. People who, for some reason, have a natural resistance to believe in anything that can't be believed on evidence. And to me, I think that is something like the refining of our minds to get ever closer to a belief system that is not only useful, but corresponds to reality. Now, my belief system's nowhere like that. I'm definitely one of those people who have a super flexible belief. I believed in Santa Claus till I was 19 years old. I'll say that again. I believed in Santa Claus till I was 19, and I only gave up that belief because I was Muslim, and it contradicted with Islam. But my mind was trying to piece it together. Well, how could I make Santa Claus compatible with Islamic dogma? I was actually trying it out, and that's the way my mind works. Whenever I'm exposed to beliefs, I try to make them compatible. I try to do patchworks, and I fix them all up and keep them operational as long as I can, particularly if it's a useful one, because the Santa Claus belief was useful on, how do you really enjoy Christmas if you don't really think there's a spirit of Christmas or Santa Claus? At some point I lost the whole Santa literally going around to each house, but I still felt like there's a spirit to Christmas, and that, the joy and the love that we experience on Christmas is the result of this spirit going through all of us, and we all, that was my belief system. And that's now that I say it, it's still kind of there. It's still lingering. It's like a little bit, very, very dull noise, but still this could kind of be true. Which I'm glad my brain works that way, because it gives an idea of how I think most people's brains work. Mine might be particularly clingy when it comes to when I come across a belief that's very useful. I'm like, I really don't want to let that go. I'm still having a hard time letting go of the belief of a God, because it's so useful and it's so resonant. Because whatever the reality is, it's so close to there being a God, because it feels like when you give over your faith or your life to something greater than you, your life starts to resonate and you start to move forward in a really good way. So that's a hard belief to just clear out. But it's a process, for me it's ongoing. I have to continuously look at my mind and see what it's making up, because I don't just believe stuff that people tell me. I also generate my own beliefs. And as a theoretical physicist, as someone who's sitting and thinking, how could, is there a little bit more than three, or a little bit less than four dimensions? Do we live in a universe with fractal dimensions? And I spend time trying to imagine that when two particles collide with each other, do they create new dimensions? And then, I spend a lot of time, I have to use my imagination to make up new possible beliefs and then work them out. But the whole point of science is, because our brains work this way, because we will go with a belief that's useful and not necessarily true, we need to find a way of weeding out beliefs that aren't true. And whatever system we use, whether it's a spiritual system or using empirical evidence, because unfortunately when it comes to empirical evidence, there's a lot of limitations. And there's a lot of limitations with measurement, and the more we get into quantum physics, the more we find that there's a problem with measurement, and we are living in something like a participatory universe, which means we are in some sense creating reality. And that's difficult, because we're creating reality through our beliefs, and the feeling that reality is somehow objective isn't true. Now, if you're projecting a concept of an objective reality onto reality, that's what you're creating. And I think, to some degree, we're making reality more and more concrete. And when I say we, I'm not just talking humans. I'm talking anything that wants to live in a consistent reality is making reality more and more consistent over time. And I'm thinking about ways to how to put that into a rigorous framework. Right now it sounds like metaphysics, but I think you can actually put together a predictive theory that shows how we're actually doing that, and that under certain hypnotic states we could probably show minor deviations in some of the physical constants, like the speed of light and so on. But that's stuff I have to work on. Like, that is probably going to be like my PhD thesis or something along those lines for future work. But for the time being, what initiated this is just coming to terms with the fact my brain is not meant, I don't want to say not meant, it doesn't naturally care whether or not beliefs are true or false. Hopefully that's useful. It sounds like a rant to me, but I hope other people can make use of that.